Can a single click on a malicious link do anything bad? There are people who say it definitely can't because modern browsers and OSs wouldn't allow anything bad to happen. I disagree, and I'm going to explain why. I'm making this video so that I can hopefully stop answering this question over and over in the comments, where people have expressed doubt about what I claimed, which is perfectly fine, whereas others have gone as far as to accuse me of lying and spreading misinformation, which is not fine. I'm going to talk about two specific factual, real-world examples where bad things happened as a result of people misadventurously clicking just a single click on a malicious link. To try to keep things super clear, I'm going to label verifiable facts, reasoned inferences, and speculation within this video. The first example is one of quite a few major incidents that I had to respond to during my career in IT, and this one happened in a company which, when I joined, frankly wasn't taking electronic security very seriously, but the incident actually happened after a good deal of that had been put right. This happened in an environment where the OS, which was Windows 10, and installed software was all fully up to date. Firewalls were in place, properly configured and fully patched, and multiple layers of enterprise-class anti-malware and security solutions were in place and functioning. I won't be able to show you any of the actual screenshots or data for privacy and security reasons, as well as discretion since I don't work for this company anymore. But what happened was this. A user received an email which appeared to be from a known contact. In fact, it was a reply to an email that the user had previously sent to that contact. The message said, "Here's the remittance advice I promised," and there was a link. The link went to a resource hosted in Microsoft Azure, so it looked fairly legit. The user clicked on the link, just one click. It opened in Chrome, but it appeared to be just a blank white page. Almost immediately, the user's PC began to slow down significantly, making it hard to even close the browser window. Not suspecting anything untoward, the user took a short break. When they returned to their desk, the computer appeared completely frozen. Not even the mouse cursor was moving. The user turned the machine off and restarted it, and everything appeared to be normal again. Within minutes, a number of other people received emails, including me. The email was apparently from this user, with the message and link about the remittance advice. Some of those people, not including me, clicked on the link and experienced the same problem, and in turn people started receiving messages claiming to be from them, and so on. My team recognised what was going on, invoked the major incident protocol, and acted promptly to contain the issue and recover from the situation. It took most of the day to safely restore service to affected users. By the time our security analysts were on the scene, however, the external page, the target of the link, had been removed. So we never did get a chance to examine in detail what the thing was doing. But here's what we know. Clicking the link compromised the user's mailbox. Those messages, including the one I received from the affected user, they were not spoofed, and we know this because they had genuine headers originating from our domain, which SPF and DKIM would have prevented if they'd originated outside, and because copies of the outgoing message could be found in the affected user's sent items folder. Clicking on the link allowed the attackers to harvest data from the user's contacts and mailbox history. We know this because over the days and weeks following the incident, there were more targeted and crafted intrusion attempts. These did originate outside our perimeter, but contained portions of email conversation history from the affected user. These were things like trying to intercept payments from client companies by trying to insert themselves into a conversation and requesting payment to a different bank, and other things like impersonating high-ranking staff, asking the accounts department to make an emergency payment for some excuse or other. All of these intrusion attempts failed because of the remedial actions of my team during the major incident process, actions which included alerting people about possible further outcomes. Clicking on the link actually ran something locally, and this is evidenced by the slowdown of the affected user's machine. It looks like that was not persistent and perhaps was only able to run while that browser window stayed open. Our best guess is that this was some sort of exploit that took advantage of the user having told their browser to remember their Office 365 login, so their credentials might have been automatically presented when they were trying to access something that was in a SharePoint page or something, even though it was outside of our domain. Ultimately, apart from the downtime this caused to significant parts of the company while we restored service, the actual tangible damage was minimal, but the malicious intent of the attack was actually quite severe. The second example I have is something that happened here on YouTube. In the old version of YouTube Studio, and again I can't show you this because this system is no longer in existence, if you wanted to add another user as manager or owner of your YouTube channel, you would walk through a few pages of web forms, then click Submit, and that would be done. There were two significant design flaws in this process. Firstly, the form assumed that since you were already logged in as yourself and acting to carry out decisions about your own account, at no point during this whole process was there any kind of authentication challenge. And secondly, the way the form worked was that everything you entered on one page was encoded as parameters that would be passed to the next page by the button you clicked at the end of the page. This is a horribly insecure way to do important things because it provides a wide open door to perform a cross-site request forgery attack. Now, I should probably say at this point the current version of YouTube Studio does not work like this. This flaw was never directly acknowledged by YouTube or Google, and in a way that's unusual, because companies usually do talk about security bugs they fix or are fixing. I speculate that the reason this wasn't mentioned was because it couldn't easily be fixed. They did admit that the old Creator Studio codebase was unmaintainable, and I think they may have lost the capacity to make changes, either through some issue with source control, complexity or fragility of the product, or even something as simple as firing all the devs that had that skill set and knowledge. And they did move people onto the new version quite hastily and forcibly, because this was a very easily exploited bug. If they had publicised it, it would have just invited a lot more attackers to exploit it. Anyway, so you get to the end of the form process of adding a manager on your channel, and encoded in the click of that last invite button are all of the parameters and choices you've made. All an attacker needed to do was walk through this process for themselves, copy out the URL with all the parameters, and substitute their own channel ID in there. Then anyone who clicked on that link, as long as they're already logged into YouTube, would, in that single click, assign the attacker as owner of their channel. The attacker would then go to work shutting out the rightful owner and subverting the channel for spam, scams, or whatever they want. This might sound far-fetched, but I'm not lying. I did actually test this with a dummy account, and I have some of the evidence of these attacks. I received dozens of emails with these links in them, and if I just clicked one of these while the old YouTube Studio was still in operation, I'd have lost control of this channel, just like quite a lot of other people actually did. You can see some of their stories if you just search "channel got hacked" on YouTube. Okay, but at this point you might be tempted to argue that these examples aren't anything to do with malware being installed after a single click, and you would of course be right. But so what? We're talking about malicious attacks, not just software installation. The computing solutions we use every day are not just one thing. They are an OS with installed software, plugins, extensions, online services and configuration. Some of that configuration is to implement convenience at the sometimes expense of security. Nobody likes remembering their passwords, so we tell our browsers to store it. That's convenient, but inherently erodes your security. Not always a worthless exchange there, but the point is your computer isn't a completely rock-solid OS and a secure browser. It's a constellation of different things that have been put together in a way that makes them usable to you. And okay, maybe you'd like to point out that the two examples I mentioned here are now patched and remedied and therefore no longer possible. And again, you would be right. But again, so what? Every day, new exploits are discovered in operating systems, browsers, other software and online services. If it was true now that a modern OS and browser can fully protect you from attack or exploits, then there wouldn't be a need for tomorrow's critical security update. And you know there will be one. I'm not telling anyone to live in paralysed fear of clicking things. I mean, I know I did sort of say that in the thumbnail of this video, but that's hyperbole. The actual message is to be alert and careful. Think before you click and don't overextend trust. And finally, you might want to say that these things are rare compared to other risks, such as simple phishing. Not in dispute. I'm not saying that these sort of exploits are common. I didn't mention these things because I think they're common. They're not. I mentioned them because they're bad. They are amongst the worst case scenarios. They don't need to be common in order to exist and still be bad. But what it boils down to is this. I really would just be grateful if people would stop calling me a liar for telling the truth, that these exploits have existed in the very recent past, and for making what I believe is a reasonable inference that other exploits, somewhat like them, will probably still exist in the future. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you again soon.